Say how great it is to see everybody in person. This is always a very exciting weekend in the football calendar and also a very important one. We feel good about the work we were able to get done last night with Trent McDuffie and George Karloftis, two great additions to our football team. We think they'll really be able to come in and help us on the defensive side of the ball. I know Coach Reed and his staff is very excited about them. And we've got two important days ahead of us with a bunch more picks. With that, I'm happy to open it up.
Typically speaking, when you make a move with the magnitude of sending Tyreek Hill, player to another team, leadership gets involved. I was just wondering, what was that process like for you when you guys ultimately made the decision to make that move?
Yeah, it was a process that unfolded over several weeks, and I was in frequent contact with General Manager Brett Veach about the opportunity, both possibly re-signing him or trading him. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we just made the decision that it was best for him to have a new opportunity and for us to have the draft picks to add to our young players.
Clark, do you anticipate having an international game this year?
So the league will be playing a number of international games. I'm hopeful that we'll be one of them. If we're not selected this year, I think that we'll be selected in the next 2 or 3 years. Obviously, we would be excited to play in Germany if the opportunity presents itself.
The other thing I wanted to just ask you about, I don't think you didn't go out to Las Vegas and come back already, did you? You didn't go out?
No, I didn't.
Just as you envision what this is going to look like next year, I know there's a lot of details to be sorted out yet, but what do you think it will do for Kansas City, and how meaningful do you think that'll be for the Chiefs?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the greatest things that the NFL has done in recent years is moving the draft around and letting different cities hosted each year. Obviously, it's an incredible spectacle this year in Las Vegas, but it's been that way in recent years in other markets. And I think Kansas City is going to do a tremendous job. We've got a great setting, near downtown with Union Station. It'll be fun to be where we were for the Super Bowl parade. It'll bring back some good memories for this organization for sure. But I think it's going to be an incredible economic boost for Kansas City, and also just from a PR standpoint, the number of eyeballs that'll be watching the draft over those 3 days will be tremendous. And I also think it'll be a lot of fun. I think the citizens of Kansas City are going to really enjoy getting to be part of the draft.
Clark, when is the time to get serious about the next stadium, whatever that might look like, whether it's renovation here or something new, or has that time come? I mean, take us through the next steps, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I know there's been a lot of discussion about it over the last several months, and maybe even going back almost a year to when the Royals announced that they were thinking about different opportunities. For us, the schedule is probably a little bit ahead of where it would naturally be because of the Royals wanting to be proactive. We have 9 years left on our lease. We're very happy in Arrowhead. We still think it's one of the great venues in the National Football League. Having said that, we want to work with the Royals and try to help them accomplish their goals, whatever that ends up being. We've started the process of evaluating whether Arrowhead has a chance of going past the end of this lease. That's going to be an ongoing process here over the next couple of years. I can't give you a definitive timeline on that. Because we've started early, the good news is we're going to have plenty of time to make that evaluation and hopefully find a solution that not only works for the Kansas City Chiefs, but works for the entire community.
Clark, what do you hope to learn in that evaluation that can sort of sway it one way or the other, or obviously give you more sense as to what the best option is?
Yeah, well, I think one of the most important things that we'll learn is whether structurally Arrowhead can go another 25 or 50 years. We'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary of Arrowhead this year, which is really hard to believe because it still is a state-of-the-art stadium. I mean, it's really a great venue. It's one that I know fans from around the country enjoy coming to, sort of making their pilgrimage to Arrowhead. But it's a cement stadium that's been around for a while now, and we've got to make sure that it can go beyond the end of the lease, and that's something that'll be an ongoing evaluation. So that'll be the first thing that we really need to figure out before we can think about the next step.
In a scenario where the stadium could last past the lease, would you be open to maybe building up this area? Do you see more business opportunities? I know a lot of people can think of Legends, for example, or Sporting Place and
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about over the years. Our family is in the real estate development business here in Kansas City through Hunt Midwest. And in the past, we've just felt that the location wasn't perfect for additional development. But times change, right? Different areas of the city develop at different times. And I think that's something that we'll circle back around to as part of this evaluation.
Look, obviously, Mark mentioned that Kansas could even be a possibility. I mean, I realize it's years away, but in an ideal world, where do you think you guys would be playing in a decade?
Yeah, I don't think there's a simple answer to that. Certainly my heart tells me that I hope it's Arrowhead, right? Because Arrowhead is so special to our family. The important thing, though, is that we find the right solution for the Chiefs and the community and something that can last, for hopefully another 50 years.
John Sherman mentioned the fact that he envisions whatever the next stadium for them is going to be a public-private partnership. Is that what you envision for your next venue as well?
Well, we've had a tremendous public-private partnership with the county, the city, and the state, since we've been in Arrowhead. And I certainly would hope that going forward, we'd have an opportunity to continue that. But I think it's a little bit premature at this point. We've got to figure out, what the right solution is, and then we can work on how we can get it done.
Mark, obviously you have to make a sound business decision with this, but I do wonder how when the time comes, you would have to reconcile the question of the sentimentality about Arrowhead. I mean, I assume there'd be some challenge in that.
Yeah, absolutely. From a personal standpoint, it's something that'll be very challenging for me and the family, right? Because we have so many great memories at Arrowhead. Obviously, it was a special place for my dad. In fact, he mentioned that if he could pick one vacation spot in the world, it would be Arrowhead. So it's not a decision that we're going to take lightly, and it's something that will be very tough emotionally.
Do you remember, this is probably neither here nor there, but I'm going to ask, do you remember your first times there? I mean, what's your first memory for yourself?
I actually remember being at the opening game. I don't know that I exactly understood what I was looking at, but I remember being there for that. And some of probably my fondest memories from being a child were being down on the field kicking field goals with my dad, with Jan Sinnerud coaching me. So, those are special memories for sure.
Closing in on World Cup site selection announcement, how confident are you feeling that it could be here?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just compliment the job that Kathy Nelson and her team have done in putting Kansas City's best foot forward. And it's not something I'm just saying, it's something that I've actually heard from FIFA, that they were very, very impressed with not only our bid, but when they came in for the inspection. And I think because of that, because of all that hard work, we have a very good chance of making the cut. It's going to be tough. There are a lot of other great NFL stadiums, right, that are part of this bid process. But I think, because of the job that she did, because of the job that Sporting Kansas City has done in developing the market from a soccer standpoint, I think all of those are positives, and we've got our fingers crossed, and we'll be hopeful when they make the announcement, which we expect in the next couple of months.
Clark, minority hiring process in the league once again took center stage during the offseason. Roger Goodell addressed it. I know it was the topic of discussion at the owners' meeting. How encouraged are you by some of the steps and some of the additions that the league has made to the Rooney Rule, and what needs to happen going forward?
Yeah. Well, it's another subject that's received a lot of coverage this offseason, but truthfully, it's an issue that the NFL has been tackling for at least a decade. I think if you go back to the beginning of the Rooney Rule. So it's something that we've worked on. And the good news is we've made a lot of progress in some areas, and the bad news is we haven't made progress everywhere we need to. Probably highlighted by the need to have more minorities as head coaches in the league. I do think a big positive, and one of the changes in the rule that was made a couple years ago, is that all the teams now have more minorities in the pipeline. And ultimately, that's going to lead to those people ending up as leaders of the organization. So I think that's a very important development. We obviously lost one of our talented executives to the Bears this year in Ryan Poles, a very good example of somebody who came up through our system, was trained by Coach Reed and Brett Veach, and now has an opportunity to lead a National Football League team. So I think that's really what has to happen going forward is we need more people in the organizations who will have an opportunity to get those jobs when they come open.
Last night you had 2 first-round picks, and clearly you've had number 1 picks before, but of late first-round picks have been unusual, so 2 was even more so. How was last night for you? Was that just a little bit more excitement? I mean, you're usually calm and cool Clark Hunt. Do you get a little bit more juice on draft night?
Yeah. Well, anytime you're around Brett Veach, you can't be calm and cool, right? Because he's excited, right? No matter what you're doing. And having 2 first-round picks last night was not only exciting for him, but it was exciting for all of us in the room. Coming into the draft, it made me reflect back to 2008. When we also had 2 first-round picks. I believe we also had 12 picks in that draft, at least to start, as we did with this draft. And certainly that's one of the greatest drafts in the history of the organization. And so, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to reproduce something close to that. I think last night we got off to a very good start on that. Highlighted by being able to draft Trent. That was something that Brett didn't really think was going to be possible going into the evening. And when it looked like Trent was sliding a little bit, he made the aggressive move to move up and get him. And then at the end of the night, we drafted 2 guys that I think will be able to help us not only in the future but this year as well.
Like with the sports betting bill starting to gain some traction on the Kansas side, what kind of impact do you see that happening to the Chiefs and other sports in the area?
Well, we're very supportive of legalized sports betting. We think that's a positive, really, for every state. We know illegal sports betting has been going on for a long time, and so we think it's really best that it comes out into the light, where it can be regulated in an appropriate way. And both Kansas and Missouri have been working on it, and I think Kansas is close to getting it across the finish line. Missouri, unfortunately, has a little bit ways to go, but we're optimistic. I think if you look at the nation, it's now legal in about 29 of the 50 states, and so I think it's just a matter of time before Missouri is able to get it across the finish line.
Couple more guys. How was the initial push into Germany gone? What have you learned through that process, and then where does the team stand in kind of trying to build that worldwide brand, maybe surrounding Patrick and Andy and whatnot?
Right, yeah. So I think it's an exciting initiative for the NFL to allow the teams to market internationally. That's something that until this year was not possible. The Chiefs were fortunate to be selected to get to market in both Mexico and Germany. And we've established presences in both markets and have begun those campaigns. Obviously, if we're able to play games, that'll really help accelerate that. We had the game in Mexico a few years ago, which no doubt helped our standing in Mexico, and we would expect the same thing in Germany. But in the meantime, we're going to be laying the groundwork so that when we get there, hopefully all the football fans in Germany will know who we are, and then we can build from there.
Last 2. A lot of folks, when Tampa said they were going to be having a game in Germany, put 2 and 2 together and put you guys there because it was the interleague game, and then Tom Brady came back. Did you guys have that game already? Is it? I know you said you don't know. You're hopeful in the next couple of years. Do you think that's still going to be the one?
Yeah, that certainly is an opportunity from a scheduling standpoint. Whether the NFL ends up going down that road, I don't know for sure. And as I said to open the press conference, if we don't get it this year, I know it's something that we'll get in the next couple of years.
Last one, Adam. Clark, as you know, there's been a lot of situations around the league where the quarterbacks or starting quarterbacks are unhappy with their situations, from Aaron Rodgers to Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, some other guys. What do you feel like maybe the Chiefs have done with Patrick to kind of make him, for lack of a better term, a partner, if you will?
Yeah.
Is there some things you can point to that?
Well, I think, all of you have had a chance to work with both Coach Reed and Brett Veach here over the last several years. And one of the things that makes them special is the level of communication between the two of them. That sometimes can be difficult. Getting your head coach and your GM on the same page can be a challenge. And fortunately, with the two of them, they almost think alike, and they're constantly in communication. And that's also true with our starting QB. Patrick and Brett, are frequently in contact. And, when we're making significant decisions, they're keeping him in the loop so that he can be part of that. So I recognize the challenge over a long period of time because some of the quarterbacks you mentioned have been with those teams for a long time, and it's hard to always keep that communication where it should be. But I think that's where it starts, is including the player in the thought process, so he at least knows the why behind what you're doing.
Are there some examples you can point to, maybe?
Well, I think the most recent one, which was publicly discussed a little bit, was the trade for Tyreek. That was not a surprise for Patrick. He was kept in the loop on that, and certainly I think that helped soften the blow for him. As a quarterback, you never want to lose your number one receiver, but he understands that. There's a business side to it, and we've got to figure out how to build a team around him that'll have a chance to get back to the Super Bowl over multiple years.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Clark.
Thank you, Clark.
Yep, thanks.